Welcome and thank you all for joining us again today on Thought Rock Live. Just a couple things, just to let everyone know that all attendees are automatically on mute. However, we do recommend that you use the Q&A function in the bottom of your GoToWebinar control panel. So take a look there if you haven't used it before, and post your questions that we'll get to throughout the show. My name is Rick Beaudry, and I'm the host. I'm one of the founders of Thought Rock. And before we get to today's session, I just wanted to let you know that next session will be August the 14th. So we're going to take one Tuesday off, it looks like, and we'll be back on Tuesday, August 14th with John Towsley from Thought Rock, and he'll be presenting ITIL, How Does It Impact Your Business? Key learnings from that session are going to be ITIL from a business manager's perspective, processes and procedures where ITIL touches the business, and impact from places where ITIL processes touch the business. And it is a valuable session. John spends a lot of time at a strategic level with CIOs and senior directors of various corporations, both on the IT and on the learning side. And so it's worthwhile to listen to John's perspective as he gets that executive commentary on the state of a nation and on what's going on a lot across the ITSM marketplace. So good session to be on. Again, that's Tuesday, August 14th. With respect to questions today, I'll do my best to get to those questions while Phil is moving through his slides, but if I don't get to your question right away, just be patient and we'll try to get to all the questions by the end of the session. If I don't want to interrupt Phil's flow for any reason, I may just hold off and have it come at the end. So hopefully that's okay. Today we have back with us, we have Phil Gerbyshak. He's presenting Recognizing Your Service Desk Rewards Made Simple and Inexpensive. Phil is a speaker, call center management expert, and author of over 2,500 articles and 4 books, most recently Service Desk Manager's Crash Course, available on Amazon.com. Phil has worked in customer service and call centers for much of the last 20 years, focusing the last 8 years on the ways call centers and businesses can best use social media to improve the customer experience. You can learn more from Phil at HTTP, actually Phil will pull this up as well. I believe it'll be on one of his slides, but it's Phil, GERBYSHAK.com. So you'll see, and again, I think Phil will have a slide up that'll have his contact information further. So with that, I'd like to bring on Phil and welcome him back again for another session of Thought Rock.
Thank you very much. It's great to be here. Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening wherever you are. It's fun to be here. So let's start with some really important questions that I kind of teased about in the intro. So let's talk first. Let's talk about what people feel. How many of you on the phone feel that you reward or recognize your team enough? Now, your team could be your direct reports. Your team could be your manager. Your team could be your family or your friends, whoever's on your team. So how many of you feel you reward and or recognize your team enough? Now, many of us do. When I do this in a live session, many people, probably about 70 or 80% of people feel that they do. And then I ask the second question, and that is, how many people feel that they are recognized enough by their manager or leadership team? And it goes just the opposite way. If you ask yourself that, we're thinking that my non-scientific research has shown that 70% of people feel they recognize people enough, and less than 30% actually feel like they're getting enough rewards and recognition from their manager or their leadership team. Again, this could be anybody. It could be your spouse, your kids, your manager or leadership team, anybody that you would look to for rewards and recognition. These are the people, and there's a big disconnect there. Now, often we talk about why. Why is there a disconnect? Now, one of the biggest reasons is because we don't know how often, what the what is, and when other people want to be rewarded and recognized. We also worry about rewarding and recognizing too frequently. Sometimes we're a little bit lazy about rewards and recognition. Maybe it doesn't feel right that we don't like to recognize any people. Sometimes we feel that we can't afford to reward and recognize people. Maybe we feel that some people on our team just don't deserve to receive rewards and recognition. And sometimes it's just that we don't have it on our calendars as part of the daily routine.
So Phil, just a quick question. So how do we make sure that the rewards, or sorry, I got another question first. You've made clear there's a disconnect, but kind of so what? What's the result of all this disconnect? And maybe you're going to talk about that.
Yeah, that's a great question. It's not just that there's a disconnect, that people are feeling bad about this, because it's one thing to feel bad, but it's another thing to really impact the bottom line. There's two numbers here on this slide that are really important. First, 22 million disengaged workers worldwide. Worldwide, 22 million people at a cost of greater than $250 million. So think about how many people are on your team, and think about how much more they could contribute, how much happier they might be, because we all know that happy cows give better milk, and happy people work harder for whomever they're working for. So the cost of disengagement is astronomically high. With 22 million people disengaged each year at a cost of greater than $250 million a year, if we could close this gap, we could be so much more successful, so much more effective. I know that we're all being asked to do more with less. That's such an old saying, but it's so true. Do more with less. Well, if you can engage your workers, if you can engage those people that are around you, engage your family to help you out, to do things, engage your manager, you absolutely can do more with less. Now, for this conversation, rewards equals recognition, and recognition equals rewards. It's really important that I share that, because we're not talking here about giving people a raise. We're not talking about paying people $50,000 more a year, or even $50 more a year. That's not what we're talking about. And we're not talking about trophies and parties and celebrations for these people, okay? But we do have some assumptions before we can get into this. We have three really important assumptions. Number one, that your team is paid a fair wage. This is really important. If your team is underpaid by 30 or 40%, what I'm talking about is not going to close your gap. In fact, you're likely going to lose your best people and be stuck with a team of people that really don't want to be there. So your team has to be paid a fair wage. Secondly, you or someone on your leadership team, could be your team lead, could be another manager, could be a senior person, but somebody actually has to see your team in action. Now, that could mean that you listen to recorded calls. It could mean that you only take an hour or two a week to pay attention, whatever. But you have to see some of this. You can't be completely absent and expect that rewards and recognition are going to work. Okay? And the third assumption is that you care about your team. If you don't care about your team, rewards and recognition are crap. They will not work. It doesn't matter. If you don't care about your team, if you don't see your team in action, and if you don't pay your team fairly, rewards and recognition are not going to matter. So if these three assumptions are true, stick with me, and we're going to talk about how you can create a culture of rewards and recognition. Now, one thing that people talk about when they do rewards and recognition is, I bought my team pizza last week. They're not very grateful for that. Well, I'm here to tell you that pizza is not a reward and recognition. Pizza is just food. Okay, pizza is just food. Now, maybe the first time that someone on your team gets pizza and you have a lunch with the whole team, that might be absolutely fantastic. But I'm going to tell you right now, just buying your team lunch is not enough to talk about rewards and recognition. Instead, we're going to talk about what makes effective rewards and recognition. Now, Mary Kay Ash, she's quite famous. Mary Kay Ash founded Mary Kay Cosmetics. And yes, I know you're not in the cosmetics industry, but there's a lot to be learned from Mary Kay. She created an amazing company through rewards and recognition.
And Phil, I'm assuming it's a segue that you're going to talk about how do we make sure the rewards and recognitions that we give really matters, and that they're not just, the pizza lunch and the things that you've just referred to.
Absolutely. That's absolutely right. I'm going to talk to you about how to make it effective and how to make it really matter. Now, Mary Kay here, she says there's two things people want more than sex and money. It's recognition and praise. And that's very true. And we're going to talk about how you can actually use it, how you can actually use rewards and recognition. Now, it doesn't have to cost a lot of money, and it doesn't have to take a lot of time. Rewards and recognition can be done quite simply with a little bit each and every day. Each and every day, rewards and recognition can matter to your team. And there's a process for making it matter. So I'm going to step you through the things that, even if what you're doing doesn't include every piece of this, it needs to include many of these pieces, because rewards and recognition are the gold that keeps your team working long after they've spent their paycheck, long after they've been at work through their shift. And they're things that keeps your team coming back for more, makes them loyal, and helps them to achieve greater things. So the first thing is that you have to make rewards and recognition meaningful and full of meaning. If you look at this picture, it's a picture of a bunch of rocks. Now, rocks might not mean anything to you, but this is a bit of recognition I got from my team. When I was president of the Brew City HDI chapter, my team and I went to Colorado Springs to the home headquarters of HDI. And at HDI every year, they give out this award at the local chapter officer summit called the Rock of Our Foundation. It's someone that you can build around. And one year, my team decided that at our annual board meeting, they were going to award me the Rock of Our Foundation. These are rocks. They might be completely meaningless to you, but each of these rocks were picked special by someone on my team, and they shared why they felt I was the rock of the foundation for our team. And I can tell you, it really just made my day, made me cry a little bit, and just made my heart feel good to know that they each took time to pick out rocks. And you'll notice there's no similarities between these rocks. And I can tell you there was very little similarity in the stories that my team told about why they felt that I deserved these rocks. Now, looking at these don't look special. They don't look like they cost a lot of money, and they didn't. What's special is the meaning behind them, and the fact that somebody cared enough to share why these rocks mattered. And I still have these rocks today, even though I received them over 5 years ago.
Hey Phil, quick question. Question from someone out there that says, I work with a virtual team spread out through the country. If I don't get to see them often, how do we get a good awards and recognition system with them? So I guess maybe talk, if you can, about virtual teams, unless it's something further along that you're going to talk about.
Sure. No, that's a great question. Virtual teams absolutely present some different challenges, but you can still reward and recognize them. Find things that they're doing well. Find things that they're doing well and reward them for that. If you can't, quote-unquote, see what they're doing, think about what you're monitoring. Think about the feedback that you get from your customers. One of the rewards that you might do might be to use video and read all of the thank you notes that each person received for a week. Now, I'm going to talk a little bit later, because folks always have, well, what do I do with folks who don't deserve recognition or don't earn it? I'll talk about that a little bit later, but really my real answer for that is don't reward anyone who doesn't earn it. Otherwise, you cheapen the reward. But do try to make it so that your rewards and recognition program has something that everybody can achieve. Everybody can achieve. Now, I've often been asked, so aren't we just rewarding people for doing their jobs? And the answer to that is absolutely we are. I didn't say that we're going to throw them a party because they did their job right. What I did say is you're going to recognize that they did their job right. You're going to let them know that you saw them doing something correctly. And that's a big deal. Most of the time, it's the ignore and zap method of management. As long as I don't say anything, just assume everything's good. But if you screw up, I'm going to zap you. Don't be that manager. Instead, again, recognize folks. And that'll take us on to our next point, and that is uniqueness. Uniqueness of folks and how you can recognize them. I can tell you that when I worked in corporate America, the way that I got uniqueness was through thank you notes. I would hand write a thank you note, and this worked for me. So unique for me was writing a thank you note. And sometimes I got thank you notes back. Sometimes I would get them written back to me, and that was always a surprise for me because I didn't think anybody else liked to do thank you notes. But you have to remember that everybody is different. Everybody is different. Now, when I started managing, I kind of knew that, but I thought, well, who doesn't like a gift card to the coffee shop? Who doesn't like Starbucks? Who doesn't like Altera, our local coffee shop here? For the Canadians, who doesn't like Tim Hortons? Now, you'd be surprised, on my team, I only had one person on my team that did like Starbucks, that did like Altera, that did like Tim Hortons besides me. One person that liked it. And yet every month I was giving out a $10 gift card to the coffee shop. Amazing that people didn't work hard to get it. So thankfully, someone on my team had the courage to come up to me and say, hey boss, you know, that's great that you give us a gift card to Altera or to Starbucks, but what, you know, a lot of us don't drink coffee. So could you do something else? So I started then asking people, so Sean, how would you like to be recognized? Stephanie, Christopher, how would you like to be recognized? And at first, the answer I got was, oh, don't worry about it. I don't want to be recognized. It's okay. But over time, I found what their favorite place was, where and how they wanted to be recognized. I created a unique reward for them. So some got a gift card to Home Depot. Some got a gift card to Target. Some still got that gift card to Starbucks or Altera. Everybody got a different reward. Everybody got a different reward. Additionally, how I awarded that was different. Some people want to be recognized in front of the whole team. Some people need to be recognized in front of the whole team. I had some people on my team, though, that hated to be recognized in front of the whole team. In fact, they would blush and get embarrassed, and it would make them not want to win the award. It was like they would pull up short right before they would win just so that they didn't get recognized in front of the whole team. So I want to encourage you, find a way to make it unique, both in the reward as well as how you give the reward. Now, with virtual teams, this is important because some folks might want to be recognized on video in front of the whole team, and some folks might not. I can tell you, though, that even if they just want one little bit of recognition, the higher up you can go to get the recognition, the reward given to them, if you can get an email from the CIO or the CEO that says, hey, thanks for doing a great job. We really appreciate you. Here's what you did. And then give them the reward, you're going to stand a much better chance of being successful. Now that leads me right into my next point, and that is specificity wins. Specificity wins. When you're rewarding folks, the last thing you want to do is say, "Hey Rick, nice job, man, you're doing great." Because though once that might be okay, right at the time that Rick's doing a great job, honestly, most of the time you have to say what they did. Because otherwise the response is, "Yeah, boss, sure, thanks for the attaboy or the attagirl, but let's be honest, I have no idea what I did. What did I do to deserve that?" And if your response is, "Well, I don't know, somebody said you did a good job." Well, how hollow is that? How hollow is that? So I want to encourage you, find a way to make it specific to the situation. And the last piece of this is you have to make it timely. You have to make it timely. If you don't make it timely, and months go by, and weeks go by, and years go by, and then at the end of the year, in their year-end reports, you write up that back in February they did a really nice job of customer service helping Sally out with a big issue. They're not going to remember it. If you wait to give feedback, if you wait to give a reward, you're going to lose. You're going to lose the effectiveness. You're going to lose the commitment of your team. You're going to lose everything. So what I want to encourage you to do is to make a little calendar appointment for yourself and put it on your calendar that you're going to reward your team. Set up a spot reward system, even if it's just once a month, where you go through and you give people a little something. It doesn't have to be the same time every month, but reward something for making someone's day, for the biggest smile, whatever you want to give. And that might sound a little cheesy, but I'm here to tell you, if you consistently recognize, people will clamor for that recognition, and everybody can win something. Now, I said that was the last tip, but truly I have one more tip for you that's really important, and that is that your rewards and recognition have to be sincere. If you follow the rest of the formula, if you're meaningful and full of meaning, if you're unique, and you're specific and you're timely, but you're like, you did a pretty good job, and you're not sincere, or you don't look people in the eye when you tell them that, or you send a half-hearted email and it's full of typos and has their name spelt wrong because their name is Diane and it has 2 N's and you only put 1, or you mention that it's in July and it really happened in January, or something like that, that's insincere. People will smell that. People will hate that. So I want to really encourage you. You have to mean what you say. You have to mean what you say. And just to show you that it doesn't cost a lot of money, I didn't make this cartoon, and I believe this is true. Thank you is the most cost-effective employee recognition program that's ever been devised. A simple thank you is the most cost-effective recognition program ever devised, so make time to say thank you every single day.
And Phil, are you going to talk specifically about a little bit more about timing or when these recognitions, like just a best practice, especially if we're talking about support teams or IT teams? I mean, what is a best practice in terms of timing for recognizing the team?
Yep, absolutely I am. I have a little quote here that I think sums up when I think recognition should happen, and that is that recognition is like bathing. You need to do it every day or you'll smell bad soon. Or you'll smell bad. I say this because I know that if you don't make recognition a habit, it'll become a week, a month, a year, a quarter, longer before you actually recognize your team. And your team will think you stink. So I want to encourage you, take time every day to recognize. Take time every day. Not a lot of time, just a little bit of time, and take time to recognize. Now, the best way to create a culture of recognition, is actually Really, really simple. The best way to do it is that you have to put it on your calendar. If you don't put it on your calendar, you won't do it. If you don't put it on your calendar, things will happen. So what I want to encourage you to do is right now, I want you to put 5 minutes sometime today on your calendar. Just block out 5 minutes and call it rewards and recognition time. So I'm going to give you about 30 seconds. I want you to look at your day. Where can you squeeze in 5 minutes from now until the end of the day? So go ahead. I'll give you 30 seconds. Okay, so what can you do in 5 minutes? What can you do in 5 minutes? You might say that's not enough time to do anything, but I'm going to give you 4 tips that you can do in just 5 minutes. The first thing is you can handwrite one thank you note. Now, it doesn't have to be fancy. It can be on a blank sheet of paper, but I encourage you to handwrite it. Don't type it. People get way too many emails and not nearly enough handwritten stuff. Now, if your penmanship totally stinks and it's completely illegible, then write less. Write less. Don't skip this and go on and not use handwritten notes. I encourage you to take 5 minutes and 3 sentences is all it takes. Second thing is purchase one Amazon gift card. Amazon has just about everything on the planet. I'm not shilling for Amazon. If you've got a local place that everybody likes to shop, I'd love for you to shop local. I just find that Amazon works whether your teams are with you or away from you, virtual or in person. I find that Amazon works pretty much regardless of where you are. Item 3 is get up from behind your desk and say thank you. Now, if your team is virtual, make a phone call. Say thanks. People get used to being zapped, so you're going to have to train them that sometimes when you call, you're going to praise them. I had a client when I was in corporate America by the name of Greg. Greg would call me about once every 3 weeks, and he wanted to lodge a compliment. He wanted to lodge a compliment and let me know that someone on my team kicked butt that day. He wanted to let me know that he appreciated the hard work that my team gave him that day. It was amazing. The first time I got it, I was like, oh my gosh, Greg's calling. Oh man, what did we do? And he says, Phil, I just want to lodge a compliment. Your team is great. Thanks for all the work that they do. They are fantastic. So take time, pick up the phone, be specific and meaningful. And then the last thing is sharing an article. Chances are that you're reading something that is of interest to your team, or you've heard something that is of an interest to your team. And maybe not to the whole team, but maybe just to one person on your team. Maybe just to one person on your team. So what I encourage you to do is for one person, share one article. Just send them a link and say, hey, remember a couple weeks back we talked about this or we talked about that? Here's an article I thought you might be interested in. Could be an article about some training, some new certifications, could be some new technology coming out, could be a time when you read about somebody providing fantastic customer service and you just want to remind them that they've often delivered that fantastic customer service. But share one article. Take time to let people know that you're thinking about them, that when you read things, that you're not just reading them for you, you're reading them for them. Let them know why. So, in conclusion, I want you to really think about my little formula for giving feedback, for giving rewards and recognition. It needs to be meaningful and full of meaning. Think about those rocks. It needs to be unique. That's why handwritten notes work. And it needs to be given uniquely. Ask people how they want to be recognized. You need to include some specifics, not just attaboy or attagirl, but what they did to earn that attaboy or attagirl. It needs to be timely. I encourage you, it's got to be done within 2 weeks or it's going to be forgotten. And then last but not least, you have to be sincere. That's why I set this up with my 3 things that you have to do, my 3 assumptions. Those 3 assumptions are so important, that your team is paid a fair wage, that you or someone in leadership sees or pays attention to your team in action, and that you care about your team. Now, people, we talked about how often, and I said as often as you can every day, and that some people may not deserve recognition, or we might feel that way. There's 2 answers to that question. The first thing is, if they really stink that much, they shouldn't be on your team. You should coach them off your team. Now, hopefully, that's not the case. Hopefully, they have something salvageable. Hopefully, you know that they have value. So what I want to instead encourage you to do is look for what they're good at. In fact, I challenge you, find out what they are best at and reward that so that the rest of the team, or even just them, can have that reinforcement that even though this person isn't perfect, they still have some redeeming qualities. So either fire them or fire them up. So now, let's turn it over to you. What questions do you have? Rick, were there any that came in?
We had those first few, and then we had the one about the virtual. And I think it's interesting because I think more and more from what we're seeing is the challenge with the virtual teams, because people are used to the traditional way of some sort of face-to-face recognition or walking by a desk, and I think it is more of a distributed challenge. So I don't know if there's anything more you can talk to with respect to the growth of distributed teams and virtual teams, and any thoughts you had around keeping people connected through that sort of rewards and recognition.
Sure. Well, first is you have to have metrics that you can actually measure. Now, that sounds obvious, right? Metrics are clearly things that you would measure, but you have to show your team that you are measuring them and what they mean to the bottom line. And then when they're met or exceeded, you need to reward that. You need to recognize that. You need to let them know that they met or exceeded it. And again, it gets back to the higher up you can go with that reward or recognition, the higher up you can go with that thanks, with that praise, the more meaningful it often is. Now, one of the challenges with that is often those higher level executives don't know your team personally all that well. So that means you, if you're a manager, need to take the time to tell the executive specifically what this team or this person did to deserve this. Having the executive come down and pat him on the head, hey, good boy, that doesn't work. So you really, really need to make sure that you make time to tell the executive what was done. Make sure that you tell the executive how that impacted the bottom line so that when they do take time to send an email, to make a phone call, or better, use the technology, use Skype, use FaceTime, use Tango, use some form of video and talk to those folks. And then when you do go on your, hopefully, sometime visit that's face-to-face, then you make sure that you actually remember that. And maybe it's a picture of you that you send to them and ask them to send a picture of them back. And that's something then that they can sit by their desk, or you even have it on the internet, on your intranet. I can tell you that in my team, even though we were face-to-face, every one of our customers was around the globe. So what we did is we created a little one-slide PowerPoint that we PDF'd and put on our intranet, and it was called Meet the Help Desk. And we just had everybody's face, then we had everybody's name. That's all we had. Very simple. Meet the Help Desk. And that was a way then when people wanted to talk to the help desk, a lot of times they would bring that posting up and say, hey, Chris, I see you there. Hey, Sean, I see you there. Hey, Phil, I see you there. So even though that's distributed, you can do that. The other thing is use the technology you have to bring folks closer together. Social media is a great way to bring folks together. Get your whole team using Twitter or create a private Facebook group that people can talk about and give them specific time. Let them know that they can use it within certain parameters. Again, if your team is abusing social media, they're not abusing social media, they're abusing work. It has nothing to do with social media. They would find another way to waste time. So I encourage you, set reasonable parameters that people can work within.
Excellent. Well, very good. Well, I just also want to remind everybody that this session is recorded, and within 24 hours, I believe, it will be available up on the ThoughtRock site. So anybody that wants to come back and listen to this or share it with a colleague, you're more than welcome to do that. Phil has also put up his contact information up there, so if there's multiple ways to not only follow him, read some of his publications, reach out to him directly. So everyone hopefully on the line, feel free to connect directly with Phil. And if for any reason questions come through ThoughtRock, and we'll make sure that we get everything forwarded to Phil as well. But we'll just leave that screen up there for a couple more seconds so that you can contact Phil or again start following him on some of those other areas, the articles, the Facebook, and the groups. So that was great, Phil. Again, appreciate you coming back. I just wanted to remind everybody again. So I think we're skipping a week with the August long weekend, and we're having the Tuesday, August 14th as our next ThoughtRock Live. More of a business discussion. ITIL, how does it impact your business, with some really interesting key insight from John Towsley around the business manager's perspective, where ITIL really truly touches the business, and impacts from the places where ITIL processes can touch the business. So what are some of those impacts? So I think it'll be a great session. So hopefully we'll see some of you back on August the 14th. Phil, if you could do me a favor and just flip to that last screen to make sure that our contact information is up there as well. Anybody, again, that has any ideas on either speakers or content or the combination of the two that they'd love to see in ThoughtRock Live, we continue to reach out to industry experts and have them contribute to ThoughtRock Live in these sessions and to bring value to our members. So if you have ideas or suggestions, I know many of you all have done that throughout the year, please either send us an email through info@thoughtrock.com, or you can also call us directly at the phone number that's listed there. So thank you again, everybody. Phil, thank you very much. Any final comments for folks, Phil? But we definitely appreciate you coming again today.
Yeah, my pleasure. The one thing I would say is please make sure that you make time to reward and recognize folks every day, even if you only have 60 seconds. I strongly suggest that you take time to connect with your team by rewarding and recognize them in small ways, not big ways, small ways, because little things add up and they make a huge difference. Long after you've stopped managing your team, people will remember how you made them feel, not what you did. And by rewarding and recognizing them, you can make them feel great about the work they do and the people they serve. So take time to reward and recognize, please.
Fantastic. Thanks a lot, Phil. Hopefully we'll hear back from you again, and we appreciate you taking the time today.
My pleasure. Thank you.
Bye-bye.